say.
He even lives locally now.
He does, yeah. So it was super easy for him to get here.
Yeah.
Now we're going to be getting into Freedom versus Sugar, which is a TVZ, Freedom being the team owner of Systrom Gaming.
Yeah. And this is going to be a little bit of an odd one because these two players practiced really hard for Cheesadelphia with each other. They were talking and sitting next to each other and trying to figure out their builds and all the things that they were going to do. And they didn't realize that they were going to end up in the same group together and have to face off against each other in the very first match for their Cheesadelphia experience. So this is going to get really weird. I'm expecting a lot of mind games. We're going to try and pick up as many of them as possible. And it's also worth noting that the other two players in this group that they're going to be, the winner will face off against is most likely the winner of M. Canning versus Ryza. I think a lot of people may be expecting M. Canning to do well there.
Yeah, actually all those names are, those are all pretty good. I've cast Sugar a couple times. I've known KJ, seen him play as well. I feel like I want to give this one to Sugar, but maybe I haven't seen him recently. Maybe it's been a while.
Yeah, I know that Freedom, of course, has some pretty cheeky builds also up his sleeve. So we'll get started and see what these two players are going to end up going for as we start down here, the bottom right-hand corner of the map, top of the blue Terran player. Give it up for Systrom Gaming Sugar.
The top left has the red Zerg. Give it up for Freedom.
Sugar saying he's Terran. It's just, I'm pretty sure you didn't go in as random, Sugar.
Yeah, he did. He didn't. Confirmed. So I like what you said. That KJ does have some good builds. Yeah, some cheeky builds. Because that's kind of what I see. Like, he participates in the DC lands that I'm a part of as well. And, while I'll face him and I'll win, he also wins against GMs, Like, he actually has, I think, a very, large margin of victory there. Like, he can lose to a couple of Masters players, but he can also win against a couple of Grandmasters.
Getting a glimpse of a Velo setting up on that main stage.
Oh,
this is from the player pit also, by the way, guys. So we don't exactly have the normal player cameras and all that stuff, etc., but we will have them for the next match. For now, though, really interested to see, again, what are these two players going to end up doing. Of course, Reaper opening is often pretty common still to this day in the matchup, but we've also been seeing a lot of players open up with those Marine openings trying to go Overlord hunting.
Yeah. Well, Reaper into Marine into Reactor, I think, is becoming really popular. So we might see that from Sugar. One Marine doesn't guarantee an Overlord kill. You really have to catch it on its way to its hidey spot, I suppose. But it does happen. We'll see in just a second if he goes in for that. Now, he did SCV Scout, and we were talking about Freedom's kind of cheeky builds, and certainly the pool first into Roach Ravager can still be done, even on a very large map like Ascension to Ire.
Yeah.
And this SCV Scout just kind of negates any worry about the early game for the Terran.
Yeah, actually, Freedom doesn't realize that SCV is still sitting inside the main base. He can always come back with that a little bit later. Granted, the Reaper should be able to get the scouting information that he really wants, but it's always kind of nice to just have that little worker. You feel super sneaky. You feel good about yourself when you just have that worker sitting in their opponent's base for 6 minutes into the game. You're like, haha, I saw your lair timing that I shouldn't have seen.
Yeah, why not? I mean, bringing the SCV back, sure, you do win an extra SCV, but is it really as good as getting the guaranteed scout? No, probably not. The third base does go down right before the Reaper gets to it, and Sugar took a beeline to it, too, so a little unfortunate for him. Now he scouts the natural, taking a beeline to the third. If you don't see it, there might have been a chance there was an early pool, but again, that SCV scout just... He completely did away with any worry that Sugar has. Now he can just focus entirely on trying to snipe Ling, snipe any drones that are put down in the natural and they really shouldn't be.
There is a reactor coming up on the factory behind all this, or at least on the barracks that will probably be swapped over to that factory for the normal Hellion builds. I mean, this is the most standard thing in the world. It's actually difficult to think of a more standard opening these days.
Right, yeah. There are some Terran players, and I think it's wonky, but they do it, that go for the reactored Marine tank push drop, I guess, whatever you want to call it still. And I'm always like, I don't know. Hellion's just so much more dependable, and they still give a question mark factor to the matchup where you could be going for Hellbats, you could be going for drops.
SCV comes in, scouts out the main base, and I I guess it actually confirms that, yeah, there's nothing super duper weird or wonky coming on. There's not like a super fast Roach Warren, as we do actually have a Roach Warren coming down now and everything. But this is more Roach Warren in preparation and maybe deal with Hellbat attacks or just the Hellions in general if you're a bit worried about that.
It's what Freedom wants to play with is Roaches.
Yeah.
When you see an opening like this. The Evolution Chamber gets a single upgrade, maybe double upgrades later on. It's pretty safe, as you said, against the Hellbats. It can just clog up walls as well against Hellion run-bys. The Banshees get a couple of free kills, and the Banshees, again, like kind of ensuring Sugar here that he won't die anything early on as long as he sees it coming. And that Marine even took the Xel'Naga. There's not, actually, it wasn't a reason for him to retreat. Maybe he saw an Overlord, but Freedom wasn't doing too great of a job covering the Xel'Nagas.
Yeah, I guess he actually ended up not making too many Zerglings. He made 4, but is a little bit worried about that Reaper still maybe getting some good pickoffs. And actually those Zerglings just sitting back at home, ready to help defend in a little bit. More Lings on the way. The Roach Warren is finished up, but interestingly enough, doesn't seem like Freedom is actually beginning that Roach production until just now when he's seen all the Hellions.
Yeah. I mean, Freedom is playing a pretty safe game. He didn't have any drones on the natural for the Reaper. He doesn't have any drones on the third for the Hellions, while he's still building up his Roach count. Notably, he did not go for a lot of Queens, and this could be a potential weakness. You want 1 Queen in each base, and then 2, usually more like 3, I want to say, outspreading creep. But if you have no... no. 2 Hellions might be enough.
Spidey was in the main base were actually down, but it doesn't look like Freedom's going to go for that. Instead, he goes for the natural. He might be able to pick off an SCV. No, like you said, 2 Hellions end up being enough. A little bit of lost mine time, but whoa, actually, he did pull all of the Hellions way back home. That's a big problem because the Roaches are now making their way across the map, and it makes it a lot harder for Sugar to continue the aggression.
If Sugar's Banshee goes through the middle of the map, then this will be a terrible waste on Freedom's part, and the Marine is going to scout the Roaches. The Banshees, plural, can go ahead and start picking away, and this is absolutely not worth the push here. He's going to split his Roaches, and that is a good idea, so maybe 3 of them will live, but not a great push. I was just talking about how he's kind of cut corners everywhere else, and I think is okay. Doesn't want to continue droning, though, and we do have Mech coming from Sugar.
All right, that good old Mech play as we end up seeing the rest of the Hellions going to be making their way across the map, accompanied by those Banshees, and the double armories coming up behind us. The armories actually should finish up right around the time the Hellions are getting to that third. So if, oh god, Freedom, does he actually have the units out to defend against this?
He is getting them right now, but you know, going back to the reduced amount of Queens, the Banshees are going to be the biggest problem. He has stacked defense as well, which in this case is going to be very helpful.
Oh man, I mean, even forget the Banshees for a moment. This is a lot of Hellbats on the ground. The Roaches can't actually contend with this, and the Roaches even get picked off by those Banshees. The Banshees fighting against the Spore Crawler, not entirely ideal. Now the Queen's starting to come to the mix, but oh man, a couple of these drones also dying at the same time, and all those Roaches are just getting roasted.
I don't think he got the focus fire on that last Banshee, and now it's out of that Spore range, so tough luck there. Where is the Overseer as well? He's just hoping for them to go back to the Spore Crawler. But they're coming back to go on and take the Roaches. They're doing a fantastic job. This is tons of damage. This was mostly minerals. Because the Banshees aren't dying, it is all minerals.
Yeah, I mean, right down there is a third CC, or orbital command, floating on over to the corner of that third base and ready to be taken. So this is not even a huge investment for Sugar. I mean, obviously you want to get some damage done. He did invest a lot into those Hellions and whatnot, and his worker count isn't exactly amazing, but he has 3 bases. He has done a lot of damage.
For how safe I feel like Freedom was playing, that was definitely too much damage. But
Yeah.
even if he wasn't, that's still too much damage. But the Spine Crawler, the Spore, I usually get Spores, but the Spine Crawler usually not something you need to get. You have more Queens, you already have the Roaches out, and that's not so devastating of a push, but delays a lot of things for our Zerg player here, including a good enough drone count to really go on into the mid game. Sugar has, well, ironically enough, a lot of freedom. He still has the Banshees, I guess, roaming around. And now he has a lot of tanks, so he doesn't have to worry about a counter, even if they didn't see the Roaches on the way.
All right, a couple more Hellions looking for an opportunity to get some damage done. Blue Flame Hellion upgrade is still on the way. 1 Queen cannot block that ramp as much as he's going to try to. Ooh, tries to block off that main base mineral line with an Evolution Chamber, but not quite going to get it. But not too many workers actually end up falling over there. So 4 workers for a handful of Hellions. That's actually not a terrible trade for Freedom.
No, I know he uses Alarak. So a couple of Vikings were made. I mean, you're not going to do too much else with your starport, and you do want Vikings later on for Vipers. But taking out Overlords, especially because they're still slow, is a really good move. There's not drops so much. It is just an annoyance to the Zerg getting supply blocked, which Freedom is.
Yeah. And man, 7 siege tanks already finished up now for Sugar. He's sitting to be in a really, really nice position in terms of his army composition. He's going to be able to churn out those Hellions A-OK, absolutely no problem. He's going to continue to throw them out for harassment. I think Blue Flame upgrade is close to finishing, but it won't finish quite in time for this round of aggression either.
Well, you know, they're a completely saturated third base, which is already a good sign.
Yeah, Drone's almost running straight into the Hellion retreat path, but looks like they do get pushed back. 4 workers go down. Sugar sitting up at 71 now. And, okay, well, Freedom going to be playing a bit of catch-up as he adds on 14 additional workers.
I think Sugar was maybe a little late to his extra factories, and he was on, like, double reactor for a while there.
Oh, boy, this is never a great feeling. When the Banshees kill off your base.
That's unfortunate. Okay, or not. They definitely could have.
You know, Sugar's feeling bad. This is his team owner, his team manager. He's just like, you know what? Let me take it a little bit easier on you. I'll let that hatchery live. I'll let the drones live.
Oh boy. Well, now that Hellbats and Blue Flame are in play, it's not. I mean, it's everything that's going to be a problem for Freedom here. It's going to be Hellbats taking on Spine Crawlers, Hellions running past Spine Crawlers. And the creep spread is not giving Freedom any advanced notice. It never got very far out. The lack of queens, the queens dying to that earlier attack. He is trying his best to get to a hive, and it looks like it will happen before Sugar is maxed out. He got a quick 4th base. I think he's already building a 5th. Is that a 5th?
Yeah, that's a 5th base.
Yeah, there you go. And as I said, his extra 2 factories might have been a little bit late, but he is at 150, which is a good enough timing, and I think he realizes he's in such a good position. He saw what the army looked like roughly, and says that he can maybe push out and find an okay position. I mean, it is a little dangerous. Okay, there's more tanks. Sorry.
Yeah, he's definitely got a decent number of those. There are 2 Infestors on the way for Freedom, but remember, Infestors no longer with a fungal growth will lock down their opponent's units entirely. And on top of that, they do not have pathogen glands. And on top of that, that's really not how you want to be engaging versus the tanks right now.
I suppose Freedom thought that he still had map control. It might take a little bit longer, but nope. Sugar is pushing at 150 and rallying both, you know, offensively into Freedom's 3rd base, but also if there was a large army, he'd be protecting his own 4th. Really nice push path here for a Terran player, but also just a really nice game in general that leads to pretty much an A move here. Usually Mac not too great for when you want to siege hop, but he has the opportunity.
Yeah, the Infestor is going to have enough energy for fungal growth in about 4 seconds, and he may be able to lightly splatter these siege tanks with a little bit of damage, but I don't even know if he's going to be able to get in range to actually do that. The scan comes down, spots out, okay, you're trying to retake a 3rd base over there. That's all well and good. I'm okay with just gradually pushing forward, because what have you got? There are Vipers on the way, but, I mean, KJ needs to actually win this engagement so handily that he can push across the map and maybe kill a base or 2.
Yeah, which I'm not so sure is going to happen. This is his army. This is what we're looking at. And Sugar could continue forward, but he's probably also macroing and doesn't want to risk running into Blinding Clouds with a bunch of Hydras. But as soon as he can focus on his army again, you know, he's going to retreat temporarily. I don't think he really needs to, but he doesn't see the supplies like we do. Freedom getting Infestors, by the way, was really weird. It almost felt like it would be a habit from dealing with bio players where Fungals can save your life. I'm really trying to think of when Fungals could save your life versus Mech. If you had Banelings and you fungled Hellbats, that's okay.
Infested Terrans, like being thrown out with so many siege tanks trying to do the friendly fire splash damage, maybe.
Maybe, and even then the Terrans, if they know Infestors are out, can just focus fire with the tanks.
Yeah.
It's pretty weird. I mean, the Vipers are usually that A+ unit, the comeback unit, and here they are now. Casting Blinding Clouds, but the split is pretty good from Sugar.
Yeah.
That's going to be good enough.
And now Blinding Clouds expire, the Hydras start moving on forward, and hey, the Vikings going to be able to deal with the Vipers, and GG gets called. Sugar takes game number 1.
Nicely done. Sugar set himself up for such a safe first 6 minutes, and then on top of that, dealing so much damage to Freedom, who also I felt was like in an okay position. He didn't, you know, expand too greedily. He, you know, he didn't really have creeps or a lot of queens, but the point is he had a Spine Crawler. Like, it looked like he was set up to deal with some type of push, and then when it actually came, he couldn't deal with it at all. And that's...
Yeah. That's sort of the unfortunate thing, I think, is especially those Hellion run-bys just continuously able to find little bits and pieces of damage. It wasn't I mean, I feel like actually Freedom developed a better and better reaction to those Hellion run-by attempts. He only ended up losing maybe like 4 workers during the later half ones, but that first one really hurt. I think that it makes it so hard to play from behind the entire rest of the game from there.
Yeah, the pacing was really, I think, thrown off with the... I really want to say that it started with the roaches that went across the map and were supposed to do a little bit more, and the Banshees caught them. From then on, the pacing just felt very off. The creep spread wasn't farther out, which lets you see the Hellions, which, you know, hopefully by that point you have such a big army, you can split it easily. He literally had no idea they were on the way until they were there, and then even when he did, he didn't have much army to move over there. So it was just constant pressure from a Terran, who usually they do eventually find themselves at a weak map control point. And that never happened for Sugar. So it was kind of like a step 1, step 2, step 3, okay, GG.
All right. Well, it's always a little bit rough when the game doesn't start going your way and you kind of lose that momentum like you were talking about. But we get ready to hop to game number 2. It is a reset moment, as that is the awesome thing about a best of 3 Zombie Grabbers. You don't have to just worry about a single game, and when you fall behind, you're just playing from behind the entire series. You get an opportunity to kind of go back and try and find that groove once again.
Plus, the rest of the group.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
This is just the first match of their group. But okay, we're getting ready to hop onto Blackpink for game number 2, as we're going to be starting up here in the top right-hand corner of the map. Top of the blue, Terran player, setting up 1-0. Give it up for Sugar from Psystorm.
In the bottom left, as the red Zerg, give it up for Freedom.
Double extractor trick, then starting the Overlord?
He did that last game too, and I thought it was weird. I think there have been the mathematicians of StarCraft that have determined in StarCraft 2 it's not worth extractor tricking to begin with, much less double extractor tricking. So usually you find whoever does this is just thought it was cool and then learned it as a habit, basically.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who still do it as like a habit from Heart of the Storm. I know before Legacy of the Void, and you had 12 workers to start out with, I would actually hear the one time it sort of made sense was if you were up against some sort of proxy barracks, or you're up against like an early pool or something, you would actually end up having at the exact moment that they would come in, you'd have 1 or 2 extra drones at that particular moment, and it would be helpful for the defense. But in Legacy of the Void, there hasn't really been a whole lot of reason to go for it.
You're right. I think I even remember hearing someone double extractor tricking to fit in a queen. I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, man.
But yeah. Yeah, at this point in time, it does seem more a habit of anything else. Now, this is kind of tricky from Freedom, so probably giving Sugar a bit of a scare, a bit of a heart attack, not seeing the natural, but it is at the third base, and he sees the pool timing, so he'll figure that out.
Man, it would be one of these days. I really want to see a Zerg player that goes for that hatchery over by the third. Like they try and hide it or something and do something sneaky. But then they also do a hatch cancel into building a spawning pool off of creep somewhere. So it really confuses your opponent. You're like, is this a proxy hatchery? What's going on?
And you really could do that.
Yeah.
But
why?
Would it really be worth it? But would
why?
it really be worth it? You don't have a natural and your spawning pool is slowly bleeding out. Like, what?
They just pause the game and are like, are you AFK? Like, you just hold on, you don't respond for a little bit. Like, no, don't worry, sorry. I was AFK, but I'll play from behind anyways. You give them that fake confidence in themselves.
But at the most you do is make them play a one-base defensive game, which I'm thinking they're still going to win.
Well, you still have your expansion. This is where you actually triple expand there.
Oh, okay, I missed that part. My bad. Yeah, your strats are like taken by the highest tiers of pro gamers, so I should really trust you.
Snoot told me that I had a brilliant mind. I think he may have been being sarcastic, but I'm going to take it as a compliment. We do have the factory popping on down, so once again, we're going to be going into that Reactor Hellion play. Worth noting that we did see that Reaper popping on out, and is going to be making its way across the map now.
Yeah.
SCV also, I think, managed to get a scout out on that third. Yeah, he saw that the third base was taken instead of the natural.
I don't really want to label Freedom as a cheesy player, but he does do a lot of aggressive openers, and it would be very, and I think in this case, because I do believe we agree that Sugar would win this without being cheesed, macro-wise, in most situations. This is where the fact that they were practice partners and talked about, you know, their strategies for each other really sucks more for Freedom.
Yeah.
Because his entirely depend on not being scouted, not knowing how he plays, not knowing the exact timings of when to scout as well. And Sugar really just does have to do the safest build, which is scout into starport. Now, he's not getting a Banshee, which is probably the safest thing you can do. Maybe not against 2-base Lair, but no one does that anymore. But
Yeah.
Medevac, if you think you can do it, yeah, fine. He's going to go for a drop.
Yeah, I'm actually totally with you on that. And I think that it's not even so much that you can't still be aggressive against your opponent if your opponent knows you're going to be aggressive. Like, there have actually been a lot of players that have shown you can still make that a kind of aggression happen, but it really does limit what aggression you know you're going to be facing off against. And we're going to see Sugar adding on that armory.
I was waiting for that armory. I was like, you know, you could drop, but why not just make an armory? Yeah, so there it comes down only a little bit late. The Liberator follows it up as well, so you either get that 1-2 punch, the Hellbat Marine push that is really difficult to stop, especially from someone who doesn't make a lot of queens or a lot of early game units. 5 roaches is helpful, but he's going to need more. This could definitely still snowball. And then you get a Liberator in the back when they've pulled all their queens forward to try and defend against this.
All right, the Queen going to be leading the charge. Just spot out the Hellions. Don't know if he actually saw the medevac. And wow, there's even a pickup and a bit of a retreat out.
Yeah, I wonder if it was more that Sugar saw that there was a roach. Which, I mean, if they go roaches, your Hellbat push isn't really supposed to work out that well, but if they don't micro the roaches, if it really is only 5 and their supply blocked, or they're depending on queens otherwise, Hellbat splash damage with the Marine DPS on Stim still does a lot. So, I mean, I guess it was the safer thing to do, just pull back, not give away those units, add on Cyclone, which is going to make some other, push in like a minute here, perhaps do even better. But it looks like he's afraid. He's like, those roaches could be coming over to my base, so he kind of defends up, and this should be fine.
Yeah, there is an Overlord drop over on the north side in the main base right now, and Sugar is not entirely aware of that, but he retreated back with all of his Hellions and the Cyclones, like you said, because he was expecting, oh, there might be some units moving out, and now Sugar actually has some idea that it's coming. He's going to be going for an immediate cleanup.
Oh my god, immediate is right. The Liberator does not do too much on the main base of Freedom. He didn't end up pulling his drone or his queens forward to deal with anything, but unfortunate about that Overlord. Now, it was Medevac, Liberator, Banshee. Eventually, he will get a Viking to clean that up, but it's going to take a little while. The Banshee really giving him the ultimate safety here. And that supply depot wall will be raised. The Cyclones will do good enough as well, but Freedom isn't really looking to win with this. He is droning very hard behind it.
Yeah, adding on a lot of drones, even adding a Spine Crawler to help deal with some sort of counterattack. But, oh god, the Banshees is going to be killing so much. This was still an investment to try and get something done, and it felt like you really didn't get anything done there.
Yeah, absolutely. In a different world, the Hellions were committed, and then they don't do a lot of damage. You counterattack while they're swapping production. They're swapping on attack labs, on the reactors. They didn't go for a Banshee because they went for a Liberator. And that does a lot of damage, even if it's not super committed. But in this world, that's not what happened. And Freedom finds itself, again, with that odd pacing. 59 drones is okay. It's still no 4th base. He still has to deal with this Hellion Cyclone Banshee attack, and that means he's going to have to stop droning, but maybe already a little bit too late on that.
All right, some of the Hellbats at the front, a little bit lower in health. Ooh, nice hit on that Medevac with the Corrosive Bile. And oh, the Spore Crawler actually doing a lot of damage. Going to be able to pick it off with potentially a Hellbat inside, but no, refocuses on the Banshee.
Wow.
The Hellbats, though, cleaning house on the ground, and the Cyclones can finish the job on that 3rd.
How often does that happen? The Banshees end up attacking the Spore Crawler, so it doesn't finish off the Medevac, and they also don't finish off the Banshees. Now, the Hellbats get a little too far forward, and so nice concave for Freedom, and this will be cleaned up, but only after losing the 3rd base.
Yeah, and that was actually, I think, all the damage that Sugar needed to really get done. It sucks that he loses a lot of his army, but behind this, all of his factories have finished up. He's beginning that siege tank production, and this makes it so difficult for Freedom to push in and actually deny or punish a 3rd base anytime soon. But I like that Freedom at least has those Overlords positioned by the 3rds. He's spreading the creep there as well to try and deny the 3rd from landing, and he will actually be able to do it for a little bit because, well, it looks like the Marines are still in the middle of the map right now.
That Medevac staying alive might haunt Freedom. Because I don't believe Sugar got that Viking and clean up the Overlord, so now the Medevacs can do that job.
Yeah.
Well, the Marines, I guess the Medevac doesn't do very much.
The Medevac spots the Overlord in case it goes to the high ground.
Exactly. It doesn't really need to bother repairing that, but I suppose that's something else he could do. Having Medevacs with Hellbat push is not a bad thing to have.
Yeah.
Well, later on, a Hellbat push. Obviously, you saw its effectiveness already, but I'm talking when supplies get to 150.
Oh, that Banshee! Surrounded by the skin of its teeth, and this Queen is so far off of creep right now. There's no hope of it getting away.
She had so many creep to burst the place down. Oh, he died so young.
Unfortunately, it goes off on its own into the wilderness, and finds a very, very sad end. The Hellions looking for an opportunity to maybe poke back in and get a bit of a run by done. There's a partial wall off over here. Freedom does actually have a lot of Hydras coming on out, but the Hydra's not paying attention. Actually, he's going to start to get roasted over here, and the drones also losing their lives as well.
There was a nice lineup of drones. That's kind of the only reason he
Yeah.
got 6. That was a little bit questionable, but sees that a lot of Hydras are on the way over. And again, Sugar's factories are a little bit late. He had the minerals build a 4 CC, and then he built his other 2 factories. So he doesn't have a lot of like army already ready to go. Now it's, you know, low on the minerals and gas, but there are some open opportunities. Over here at the third base, only 2 tanks really covering. Freedom, if he pushes right now, could maybe at least force a liftoff.
Oh, Freedom's adding on the infestation pit. He's got a big army over here. And hey, a couple of the Hellions, there really weren't that many Hellions over here, do end up going down pretty early on. And that's the funny thing, is that you can even have like 3-4 siege tanks siege up to defend that third, and normally they'll do great versus that Roach Hydra army, but he keeps getting pulled back, and he's allowing Sugar time to get up a solid Hellion count, and just that front line buffer to protect the tanks.
Yeah. I think if Freedom looked at this replay, he'd like be smacking himself in the head, like, oh my god, that was an open opportunity. It was really good of Sugar to scout ahead with that Hellion. They even saw there was an army there, so he could move the rest of his army, but it would still have been very close and maybe an opportunity.
Oh god, and Freedom is just trying to take the map. He's taking 3 expansions at the same time while he gets up Infestors, while he gets up a Hive. But oh boy, this is really relying on Sugar not making a big push out in about a minute or 2. Because I don't know if he's going to get the advantage from these hatcheries right now.
Yeah, he might wait till he's maxed out for this game. Last game, maybe he had an even bigger lead, so he felt comfortable pushing at 150, but
yeah,
not this time. So continuing to clear up creep, which is looking better than last game, so giving him some advanced notice is nice. And Freedom did not just, I mean, he double expanded when he lost his third base, but now also getting to the 5th and 6th, which he does desperately need and definitely has the minerals for.
Yeah, the Planetary Fortress also a lot easier to defend, as it just ends up buying so much time. It helps out. It almost is that frontline buffer sometimes for the siege tanks, and does that good old splash damage at the same time. But looks like for now, Freedom is just trying to clear out the map. He's starting to fall a bit behind in supply, but he's getting up those Vipers, and this is where those kind of miracle engagements can happen, as long as he doesn't suffer at the fate of the Vikings.
Right. Though there's definitely a good shot here for Freedom. I think he really needs to get like 20 more workers at least. He's only at 50 right now, which is not great. And then he needs to get maxed out, which he apparently has time to do because Sugar isn't going for the 150 push and is actually building so many extra command centers. He might just be looking for Freedom pushing him first. And this is also where we get to see the actual like engagements from these players, because Sugar could be terrible at mech engagements. Like I haven't seen him in a while, and if he gets a little overeager and doesn't realize the Vipers are already out, then that's when Freedom makes up for the early game and really takes a lead.
Yeah, the funny thing here also is we actually have Burrow and the Ultralisk Cavern coming out, and Burrow is the kind of interesting one. He's also finally adding on 14 more workers to start saturating up some of those bases, but oh god, those workers may be going down soon, although the Hellbats end up at an empty base with none of the larvae really being used, so Freedom actually kind of catching a little bit of a break here.
Really nice that Sugar remembered to get Smart Servos, by the way. I think it's something that's skipped and it's so darn cheap. That might not be an important base right now, but this is the worrying thing, is that Freedom might not bother replacing it, and then he'll find himself without minerals and be like, well, I wish I had gotten that earlier.
It almost just acts as kind of like a tank buffer for the Hellion harassment, because they waste a bunch of time killing off that hatchery, and you're like, cool, now my drones are safe.
It is also a bit of like, you read the situation as Sugar, who doesn't have much vision, although he's getting more as he's finally moving out, and he's like, that should be important, right?
Yeah,
killing an entire base.
I killed a base. This is a game about taking bases.
Yeah, but then Freedom actually does have a bit of a bank, so yeah, it's not as much, but it is a good move. Like, Sugar's still in the lead here, and as long as he doesn't really mess up the attack, he should be even winning with this push.
Swarm hosts on the way, and they are going to be popping out, I think, just barely in time to help defend over here. I don't know if you'll be able to get them in position. Baneliness also on the way. +3, oh, sorry, that's Chitinous Plating actually that's still finishing up right now. Oh boy, okay, well the Ultralisk is on the way, and I think he has just the Vipers out right now, but the Vipers are going to have a hard time closing the gap here.
Obviously that Hellbat transformation comes very quickly and will be very important for dealing with the Locusts. There also needs to be a bit more of a split on the tanks. He was awfully clumped up, but the Vipers weren't ready to go. Now splitting, this is going to be a lot more difficult for Freedom.
All right, Infestitarians. Oh, takes out 2 of those Siege Tanks with some friendly fire. The Swarmos starting to come forward. They are unleashing their wave of locusts, and it looks like the Blinding Clouds catching some of these Siege Tanks. This isn't going terribly for Freedom.
No, it wasn't. There's a couple things that went on in there that's really important, you know. The tanks are at this point in time too spread out. They're actually not covering many of their friends here, so... And then also, Sugar just lost a ton of Hellbats being moved forward for the Blinding Cloud instead of just retreating further and further back into the tanks. So, nicely done for Freedom. And the Infestors, to his credit, you know, I kind of questioned them last game, did do something there.
Oh man, it looks like that's the final Viking that actually exists right now on the map. And well, the 2 Hydras are not going to be able to kill off that Siege Tank. Getting so close to it, but...
That's a little bold.
Oh boy, this is going to be actually...
Cancels.
This is going to get a little bit dicey. As soon as that Ultra is taken out, these Siege Tanks are going to be able to whittle away at those Hydras. Is this going to be enough to break him?
No, maybe if there was a... No, Ling Rob, I can't do it against Hellions, can it? No, there's not quite enough. The Remax would have to be instantaneous, and it's not. Freedom didn't have that many minerals and gas because he was on such a low worker count, and he's actually back down to 60. He was at 70 for like a minute, maybe. He's back in a Swarm Host, which is a really interesting decision. The earlier you make Swarm Hosts, the better they are. If you're going to make them really late in the game, they better be a surprise, basically.
Oh.
But we see here, there aren't any Hellbats, and this is going to be great.
Oh my
All
god.
the tanks friendly firing on each other. They got very good trades, free units for, what was that, 6 tanks, 7 tanks?
That was a lot of tanks right there. That was an enormous win. He's even going to be able to snag a kill on this remaining tank that's sitting back over here. I think there's a couple of Hellions that he's going to be able to kill off. Freedom is really seizing a pretty big army supply lead, and he is looking to finally be able to move across the map. And I think this time he's going to have a much better shot in the engagement.
This is that, I feel like we see it a lot with mech players where they win, they're winning, they get a good push, and then they get surprised by something, right? Mutas, Swarm Host, good Blinding Clouds, and they just keep pushing. But really, they need to go back to the idea of consolidating as a mech player, waiting for them, you know, the synergy that is a maxed out mech army, and then they can go again. So Sugar definitely made some mistakes there. He lost a much bigger mineral lead than he had. He didn't cancel 2 command centers, and that was pretty big, and he had to remake a lot, but he is still in an okay position.
Neuroparasite on the way as the Hellions and Hellbats do find quite a few drones. No scan coming down just yet, but actually, funny enough, I think the Hellbat splash damage is still killing off some of those burrow drones. A good chunk of them still going down.
Yeah. Freedom does have an attack of his own heading off to the bottom right, limiting Sugar off from a 6th base. Is still going to be very good, even if he's already on 5.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I do feel like Freedom has actually been losing a lot of these important bases now. Like, we were talking about how earlier he was mass expanding, but this is much later on in the game. Those bases are important. He cannot afford to lose them. A lot of Siege Tanks siege up over here. The Hydra's down in the bottom right, and oh my god, Freedom is just going for a counterattack, so he's going to lose all of his bases in the meanwhile.
I'm not sure if base trade is really going to work out for him. He has so many command centers and planetaries to get through before he really gets into the heart of the production that Sugar could safely set up a handful of tanks in his natural and at the very least win a legitimate base trade.
Yeah. Taking out some of the Hellions that are rallying forward. It looks like Sugar is actually pulling back with these siege tanks. And oh boy, now Freedom is actually going to be trapped, but if he can still get some kind of good engagement, I think all those Swarmos are on cooldown right now though.
You know, where are the Vipers? They died. They died and they weren't remade. That is problematic. Because one really great thing about forcing a base trade versus a mech player is that they unsiege and run after your army. Perfect opportunity for Blinding Clouds, but not here. And while the trade, I mean, it took out 1 base. It didn't take out the bottom right, which I thought the Hydra was going to take out. Only a tiny bit of production is even over here.
Yeah, Liberator plus a Planetary Fortress clean up all of the Swarmos Locusts that come on out. And now those Swarmos are, oh god, they're going to have a hard time getting out of here. As well, they're going to get out of here, but it's going to be out of the way to heaven.
Oh, those Infestors swelled to like 10 times their size, man. They had a gruesome death.
Yeah.
As did the Swarm Hosts. Freedom is unfortunately going to be tapping out of this game right now. GG. Sugar takes the 2-0.